The Prime Minister has apologized for remarks he made last night at a Liberal Party fundraiser. Here's the scene. Protesters were trying to draw his attention to what's happening in a place called Grassy Narrows. You might have heard of it. It's an Indigenous community in northwestern Ontario where people are suffering from mercury poisoning. Long story behind that is mercury was dumped into a river in the 70s, 60s and 80s and just left there, and that led to poisoning. Well, video from that Liberal fundraising dinner went out on social media, and here's what it shows.
Prime Minister Trudeau, people in Grassy Narrows are suffering from mercury poisoning. You committed to addressing this crisis.
Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for your donation tonight. I really appreciate it. And as we know, the Liberal Party is filled with different perspectives and different opinions, and we respect them all and our commitment.
So the sound quality, not the best there, but just in case you couldn't make it out, Trudeau said after the protesters were talking about Grassy Narrows and the mercury poisoning, the Prime Minister said, "Thank you very much for your donation tonight. I really appreciate it." And that drew some laughter and applause. He did go on to say the Liberal Party has many diverse opinions within it. CBC's Janice McGregor is on the story. She joins me live from our nation's capital. That was last night. Today's a new day. How has Justin Trudeau tackled those comments, Janice?
Well, you know, in a very simple way, he said he's sorry, you know, acknowledging that what he did at that closed-door fundraiser last night was not appropriate. Came across as tone deaf. Someone on Twitter called it smug, particularly reacting with that comment about thank you for your donation. The only people in the room were members of the Laurier Club. You have to have donated over $1,500 to the Liberal Party to get in those doors. And he was sort of using that, and you could sort of hear the reaction of the crowd when he said that, but really not appearing very sympathetic at all. Now, having slept on it and had the error of his ways shown to him, he wants to apologize, and he did so today in Halifax. Let's take a listen.
As I think you all know, from time to time, I'm in situations where people are you know, expressing concerns or protesting a particular thing, and I always try to be respectful and always try to engage with them in a positive way. That's how I believe democracy should function, and I didn't do that last night. Last night I lacked respect towards them, and I apologize for that.
Trudeau also said that they would be refunding the money that these protesters donated to get in the door to that fundraiser last night. But I think what struck people was that it was kind of a rare lapse for the Prime Minister. He sees a lot of protesters everywhere he goes for a range of issues, as you can imagine, Suhana. And when he does town halls and he's out in public, he takes some pretty sharp criticisms, some emotional criticisms from time to time, particularly on First Nations issues. And we usually see him respond with a lot more grace in explaining his government's position and what they're trying to do than that flip remark that we saw last night. And, you know, as an example maybe of them realizing the extent to which this was a mistake in the error of his ways, as he left the event in Halifax, there were some other protesters, we believe First Nations protesters, who were unhappy with a gas development in that province. And he went right over, walked past his motorcade, went right over, and spent a bit of time with them, hearing their concerns directly before leaving. So a bit of course correction here today for the Prime Minister in an election year.
And Janice, just remind me, I briefly did it for our viewers, you know, in the introduction to this, but the point of that protest, it is important to know.
That's right. What happened in Grassy Narrows is a very serious, very sad story by any stretch of the imagination. Mercury was dumped upstream from this First Nations community, and as a result, it contaminated what had been a very viable commercial fishery for these people. It wrecked the soil, and significantly, it poisoned the drinking water. And some studies suggest now that up to 90% of the people from this community may be showing adverse health effects along the lines of mercury poisoning. Various provincial and federal officials over the years have responded to that. There was an attempt to put in a compensation program in the 80s. Apparently only 6% of residents were ever able to really navigate that to their satisfaction. There's pressure now on the federal government to step up do more on compensation. And currently the Department of Indigenous Services, led by Seamus O'Regan, is looking at building a specialized mercury treatment facility to deal with some of these health issues. But that has been taking a long time and has been a long time coming for these people. So their frustration spilling out here, and the Prime Minister, at first anyway, not looking terribly sympathetic, trying to fix that now today.
Thanks for that, Janice. That's CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa.